Swati for being here with us on this evening in light of the beautiful spring weather that is outside awaiting us. I'd like to reiterate the fact that Mr. Parker mentioned that this is lifting the double burden, the critical review of race and gender part to do. And a lot has happened since 2008 when we first convened ourselves in discussing this. So what I will do is just read for you some points that I've come up with, not too lectury, I hope, but just something to think about as we have our conversation. In 1890, at the National Women's Suffrage Association, Mary Church Terrell stated, "The colored women of this country carry two heavy loads, the burdens of race as well as gender." In 1892, Anna Julia Cooper stated, "Where and when I enter, in the quiet, undisputed dignity of my womanhood, without violence and without killing or special patronage, then and there the whole race enters with me." In 1896, the Confederation of Black Women created the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs in response to increasingly complicated social welfare demands on community resources, as well as a reaction to the growing racism of the late 19th century. These women subordinated denominational, regional, and ideological identities to forge a national club movement dedicated to racial betterment. The NAACWC was in the belief of all or none, and their motto, "Lifting as we climb," sought to inspire other women in that effort. In 1935, Mary Bethune, from her vantage point as the advisor of minority affairs to President Franklin Roosevelt, said that she did not rest to see unharnessed women's power among our women. When 28 national women leaders responded to her call, she pointed out that we did not need another organization, but one that would bring organizations together. At the behest of Mary Church Terrell, who suggested a council, Mary Bethune founded the National Council of Negro Women, a national organization of national organizations. Hers was a vision of a call for unity and purpose with action. In 1982, Gloria T. Hull, Patricia Bell Scott, and Barbara Smith edited a work entitled "All the Women Are White, All the Blacks Are Men, but Some of Us Are Brave." This work provides academic discourse and usable bibliographies on the experience of Black womanhood. In the late 1990s, Toni Morrison, in an article the New York Times wrote, "She had nothing to fall back on, not maleness, not whiteness, not ladyhood, not anything. Out of the profound desolation of her reality, she may very well have invented herself." And yesterday, in the New York Times, eulogizing Dr. Height, the author wrote, "If Ms. Height was less known than her contemporaries in either civil rights or the women's movement, it was perhaps because she was doubly marginalized, pushed off stage by women's groups because of her race, and by black groups because of her sex. Throughout her career, though, she responded quietly and firmly, working with a characteristic mix of limitless energy and steely gentility to allow the movement in the fight for social justice to continue." This brief synopsis of Black women in history allows one to view a continual thread that has spanned 120 years. Black women have sought to exert themselves as both Black people and as women. This unique location, the nexus between two marginalized groups, provides them with a unique vision of truth, justice, and equality. Tonight, I would like to share some thoughts about Black women, their image, their income, and their influence. These three areas are a hearty point of discussion that we can have about the past, the present, as well as the future successes and, God forbid, failures of Black womanhood at the close of the first decade of the 21st century. The formal title of my presentation, I'm supposed to be formal here, is Intersectionality in Image, Income, Influence, Black Women in the Millennium. And it's kind of a prelude to what we'll be doing in November, so it's forced me to have to kind of contrast some thoughts. Hopefully it'll be cogent, and I definitely love your feedback about that. Okay, so image. The theoretical framework that I like to use is intersectionality, and that basically says that race, class, gender, and other social constructs are mutually constructed systems of power because they permeate all social relationships within society, untangling their effects in any situation or for any given group or population remains difficult. Taking the verbiage away, it simply means that a society cannot be non-racist, because it would also be non-sexist, anti-homophobic, as well as anti-elitist. All elements of human difference are related to the existing power structure and cannot be erased without an all-other solve on each point of division. So where do Black women figure into this system of oppression at the beginning of America's economy and enslavement vis-a-vis chattel slavery?
During enslavement, the physical body of all African people and all that was contained, their labor, their reproduction, their ideas, and their skills, were objectified and turned into commodities that were traded in the marketplace for profit. For black women, her ability to produce, harvest, or cook, as well as reproduce, placed in a very peculiar area. Black women's bodies were fragmented commodities. Her head, her heart, her back, her hands, and her womb were replaced with price tags to enrich enslavers, slave traders, and the American economy. For more information, I would suggest you look at Patricia Bill Collins' book, Black Sexual Politics, African Americans, Gender, and the New Racism. The advent of the Reconstruction era allowed black people to create autonomous communities from the tattered fragments of enslavement. Thus, Mary Church Terrell's observation that black women carried too heavy burdens impacted her life. Even though she was fair complexioned, educated, and freeborn, and of means, fluent in English, German, and French, and she advocated for human rights because she had the one-drop rule that stigmatized her as being part of an inferior group beyond repair. So from Maddie to Jezebel to Sapphire, black men had been manipulated by the media to conform to fantastical ideas of who they are. Now in the 21st century, black women have reached astronomical heights. We have Mae Jefferson, Michelle Obama, Condoleezza Rice, whether you like her or not, Oprah Winfrey. Concurrently, there are images of scantily clad music video dancers, Beyonce and Lisa's duet with Lady Gaga, Erykah Badu's striptease, as well as clothiers and popular culture seeking to exploit low self-esteem through lurid advertisements of black women and girls, and they're calling that innovation. Early generations of black women imbibed the sensibility of representing the race by their successes. Contemporary black women, however, are frustrated with being held to such a high standard. They believe that they should have individual choices that are theirs, not impact or consequence. Yet, the sex trafficking erodes the innocence and the youth of countless black girls, and I'm happy to hear Dr. Jones-DeWeaver's work on black girls in New York. We are very salient point to bring up some of the numbers of what's happening to versus the public image and the lived experience. Violence against black women in dating and marital relationships results in brutal death. We had a woman that was burned nearly to death in Maryland recently by an ex-husband and a restraining order that did not keep him away. But still, contemporary women believe that their decisions are without consequence. So we can have a question. Panelists, please consider. What is the image of the 21st century black woman? And who, if anyone, represents that ideal? Is she a singular experience or a composite portrait of individual elements? Question one. Let's go to that. On to the next area is income. In light of the burden of chattel enslavement and what it had on black women, the contemporary discussion surrounding wealth and income is a direct relation to that understood in American history. The disparity is twofold. We have intra-racial gender privilege as well as mainstream sexism. So there was an article on the seeingblack.com by Mark Anthony Neal, and he explained that Robert Lewis was giving a lecture to the men at Morehouse, and he defined black male privilege as the built-in and often overlooked systematic advantages that center the experience and the concerns of black males while minimizing the power that black men hold. This perspective is contentious. The question is, who's more of the victim, the black man or the black woman? That is a relevant term because we look at the data now in a report that was done by Insight, Center for Community Economic Development, entitled Living as Decline, Black Women's Wealth and America's Future. They offer concrete data showing that the ways that gender privileges have manifested themselves with accumulation of wealth on a daily basis. According to this report, wealth is a fundamental to economic security and stability. Single black women have a median income wealth of $100. Single white women have one of $41,000, and black men $7,900. So even though black women are working as professionals, including academic degrees in high number, they are still earning 87% of the diminished black male dollar. Women of color experience a pay gap that's not just affected by the gender issue, but also that of color. Money issue impacts all areas of interaction between men and women, from dating to marriage, when those issues are muted in light of economic stress. Many single and single-parent women, I'm talking about black women, are taking care of older relatives, siblings, and college-age students, often on a single income stream with low to no inheritance from transgenerational wealth. According to the report, and I quote, without savings or with some kind of wealth form, economic stability is built on a house of cards that quickly crumbles when income is cut or disrupted by job loss, reduction in hours of pay, and the family suffers an emergency in health. The report also notes that wealth is tied to the well-being of the next generation. as it provides parents with the ability to help their children. Intergenerational wealth transfer is one of the reasons there's a race wealth gap disparity from policies that have become entrenched. And in doing some research, Bill Clinton in, I think, 1996, talked about the personality, responsibility, and work opportunity, where he diverted federal funds and social welfare programs from the federal to the states. So we saw the same thing happen in the 19th century, where you have nullification of the federal government speaking on behalf of their citizens and letting states legislate who gets what, and we know what happens when the states are in charge. And of course, we talked about the 1990s, and I'm sure Dr. LaRoche and Ms. Rowland-Barnes can talk about this. Republicanism dismantled the enforcement of many equal opportunity efforts, both in civil rights that were gained in the 60s, as well as the large incarceration of African-American males on the war on drugs. And now black women are outpacing black men in incarceration rates. So we have this thing called the new Jim Crow that is also being challenged. So question to our panel again, just to think, how does a black woman mend the breach